Welcome to another episode of The Rabbi and the Therapist. Today, we'll be talking about narcissism, a word that's been thrown around by many. But with us is a therapist who has worked particularly with many women, as she will talk for herself, Chaya Chanowitz, who is, again, also a young lady, has helped many people within our community. So let's get right to it. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you. So, for the simple person, let's start off. You say the word narcissist, and it's been thrown around. How would you describe the word narcissist?
Narcissist is not a person that's difficult. There are different types of narcissists. The one thing all narcissists have in common is a sense of entitlement. They feel entitled. They're also very manipulative. Some narcissists have grandiose thinking, which means they want to succeed magically. A lot of them do succeed. Narcissist is not like when someone doesn't understand that you're upset. It's just like they don't have any empathy. They can see you crying and say, oh, she cries all the time. But they are extremely sensitive to their own feelings.
Chaya, bring it a little bit closer. I mean, you are sort of, I think you're giving us a little bit of the playing field, the goalposts. Bring it a drop closer to a person that you would be speaking to.
Okay.
How would I know if I am a narcissist or married to a narcissist?
First of all, if a person knows if he's a narcissist, if he admits he's a narcissist, he's definitely not a narcissist. The worst thing you could say to a narcissist is that you're a narcissist. Really, the way to know if somebody is a narcissist is in a personal relationship or in a work relationship where the narcissist is the boss or somebody in charge. Because in the public, narcissists really want to look good. Narcissists want people to admire them. They show their good side of themselves. You think they're wonderful.
You know, you said a lot of things. I seem to wear many of those attributes myself. I mean, I want to look good. I feel many times entitled. You mentioned that point that really spoke to me. I think every Yiddish person, we tell them, hey, you're entitled. You're a child of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. You're a daughter of Rachel, Rivka, and Leah. So bring it back a little bit better. Perhaps, Doctor, you can help us out.
Well, I certainly understand the descriptors that you've outlined so well. Maybe we can go back a little and try to understand it also from where this comes from. Yeah, I mean, we get the word from the Greek myth that Freud co-opted of this really physically beautiful, and if you read the myth, it would appear very charming young man. You know, and I think that the one thing that you probably politely avoided is, if you read the myth at least, is that on top of everything he was extremely sadistic, extremely cruel and mean.
So that's the problem with some of the things you said. It sounded pretty nice. So what is the problem if I'm married? And by the way, both of you use the terminologies of he or him. Do we have women narcissists as well?
Well, let's talk about the myth, actually.
Okay.
And in the myth, it is a male. And part of the reason I went further by talking about the sadistic component as well is that you were sitting there worrying that some of those descriptors applied to you. I wanted to alleviate your concern.
Thank you.
So Freud used that as really the basis. I think we're a little beyond that today. You know, the question, well, I'll put it back in your lap, really. If you can get past the glitter, right? I find narcissists almost utterly empty.
A narcissist, most people when they think of a narcissist, they think of a grandiose narcissist. Of course, thank you for your question. because all of us want to be in a healthy relationship. We want to be admired. We want to be recognized. The difference is the narcissist only wants to be admired, only wants to be recognized, and only in a public arena. That is the main difference. You're not a narcissist because you were worried if you're a narcissist. A narcissist doesn't worry he's a narcissist. He's not even aware most of the time he's a narcissist. A narcissist...
When you say the public arena versus what? The private arena?
Yes, yes.
And what do they do in the private arena?
In the private arena, they're extremely sadistic. They're manipulative. They manipulate the other person who's in the relationship. They blame. Anything that's wrong is the other person's fault. For example, if they themselves lose their job, they will blame their wife. It's because you're not loving enough. It's because you're not supportive enough. It's all your fault. If I would have a more supportive, loving home, then I would definitely achieve greatness in my job.
And what about a little thing? If I lost the keys, is it my spouse's fault there too?
Everything is your spouse's fault. If you lost the keys, if you can't find your yarmulke, it's your spouse's fault. If your spouse can't find her keys, it's her fault too. Everything is her fault. She becomes the victim. She really is a victim. She's blamed for everything. And there's a difference between lying and manipulating. The narcissist, a person can lie. Let's say your husband says, when are you going to be home? Or the husband is the wife. When are you going to be home? Or you're going to be late for work. When are you going to be here? So you say, oh, I'm already 5 minutes away. And you're really 15, 20 minutes away. That's lying, right?
Yes.
That's misleading. But a narcissist, the second component is they lie and they make the other person feel that they're psychotic or they're making things up. For example, if you tell your spouse, you said you were going to shul, but you really went to play baseball with your friends, right? And then when he comes home, you tell your husband, hey, Shoshana called me and she said you were playing baseball with her husband. He says, you never believe me. You believe Shoshana over me. This is what you always do. You're horrible and you make things up. You live in a fantasy world. So he lies to manipulate her and he makes her feel stupid. Or if it's a female, she makes him feel stupid.
Okay, so we're getting a strong sense about what goes on, the pattern of interactions, the externalization of blame.
Right.
But again, I'm going to bring it back. This all feels very empty to me. In other words, that it's arising from not from the presence of something, but from the absence of something. Yes? Who but an empty person would need to aggrandize themselves to this extent? And so that's really what I want to explore for a moment, both from the psychological perspective, but frankly also from the religious perspective, because I almost think that this is a phenomenon which is age old, that really, with me at least, resonates with an infraction of the first commandment.
Are you suggesting that a person who is godly or spiritual cannot be a narcissist? Because I seem to see there's certain people that I can think of right now who have very nice positions of leadership even, and it's, to a certain extent, still fits everything that was said.
Absolutely. But I guess then you're really agreeing or conceding that there's a component of this in the human of, I am God. I am God. I am all powerful. I am all knowing. If something goes wrong, it's an infraction, or Yeah, an infraction of another individual, which is the externalization of blame. It seems to me like it is a complete, frank violation of the first commandment.
You know, you as a therapist, I mean, you this is one of the things you wanted to talk about here in this episode. And my first question is it that prevalent? Does it happen that often?
Research shows that over 1 million people are in narcissistic relationships.
When you say
I'm not saying in America. I'm not saying in the Orthodox community. But the doctor is right. Really, it covers up low self-esteem, fragility, shame, fear of exposure. The narcissist lives on 2 levels. On one level, they always have to be right. They have to know it all. On the other level, they're so afraid that their real self, their inferiority, their shame is going to come to the forefront.
You know, when we talk about bullying, which today is also a very big problem,
Right.
Some of the negative parts of the narcissist, is it the same as the bully? Because you seem to lay that out, that the bully also is a person insecure, has less to sell, and because of that overcompensates and tries to control somebody else.
Well, the bully is an example, purely the bully, is an example of someone who is cruel and sadistic, okay? If you look at the characteristic criteria of sadistic, antisocial, sociopathic, they don't use the word narcissism, but they write grandiosity. It's always there, okay? So it's the kind of thing where, yes, all bullies are somewhat grandiose and egocentric and self-centered, but not every narcissist is a bully and is an outright bully the way you're describing it, excuse me, or a sociopath. But obviously what we're hearing is that underneath that veneer,
Right.
okay, is a very shallow, extremely fragile person who perhaps doesn't even know. When you ask the question how prevalent it is, earlier, as you recall, we talked about the fact that I don't remember the author, but a very popular book in the 80s was The Age of Narcissism. In other words, that this phenomenon is being observed even on a sociological level and clearly has increased over the decades.
Again, as a layman, narcissism to me, I would thought it was a behavior that was somewhat learned or taught. Are you suggesting it's more of a personality and therefore I have a gene to be a narcissist?
Can I answer? 5% of people that are narcissist is genetic. 95% or 90% is learned.
Learned behavior.
It's basically if they were in childhood in a relationship with narcissistic parents that did not attend to them emotionally, sometimes physically too, parents who were not nurturing, parents who lived through their children. They only recognized them when they succeeded, and succeeded in the area that they wanted them to succeed.
Right, because it could work the other way as well, no? Where if they succeed and somehow that outshines the parent, if they have a common interest.
Right. Narcissists are very jealous, extremely jealous. One of the things they do in a relationship is they put their spouse down. Usually, I'm not sexist, but usually it's men. Because men usually, I know maybe because I'm an Orthodox woman, men usually have more power.
That's a discussion we can really get into. I'm not sure if I agree with that whole premise.
Fine.
But having said that, okay, so my daughter calls me up and says, my husband's a narcissist. Or I notice it on my own, my child is married to a narcissist. Or in fact, I myself. Is there something can be done? Are you going to say just leave the marriage, or is that something that we can work with?
That is an excellent question, and that's why I really want to talk about this topic, because I want women to know. I'm addressing women because they're older, they're not stuck. What does stuck mean? That doesn't mean they have to leave the relationship and get divorced. They're not stuck. What happens when a woman is, can I just say woman? When I say woman, I mean female and male, okay? When a woman is in a narcissistic relationship, she loses her identity. She doesn't know who she is. The narcissist is going to try to hold her back from achieving. And the really sad part is the loss of potential. You can have a woman that's very bright, can really make her mark in Yiddishkeit and in society, but her husband won't let her. He's going to say, oh, you don't have the education. You're going to fail. And eventually she believes it. It's like if you hear it for so long, and also the narcissist, he isolates her. He tells her, oh, your best friend really is jealous of you. She spoke, and he lied, she spoke such bad things about you. Your mother hates me and your father. Your family, oh, look at them, they're so gross.
Solution.
Okay, so the solution is, number one, the solution is if a parent or anybody sees that somebody is in this type of relationship, because the victim, we'll call her the victim, will not say it because she's embarrassed. She's staying. Why are you staying? She doesn't want people to know what her husband is really like because he's her husband, right? So she doesn't say much, but if the parent realizes it or someone that's close realizes it, has to validate her feelings. It looks like you're really upset. You know what? You're such a special person. How come you didn't go for that job? It's such a loss. You were so successful in school. Or you have such a good heart. You used to take care of everybody. Why don't you go and become a therapist? And unconditional acceptance, because the victim learns that she or he is only accepted conditionally. As long as you do what I want, then I will show you love bombing. See, the narcissist is not stupid. What he does is, for a while, he'll say, oh, I love you, you're the best, get her a present, let's go on vacation. So he tries to keep her in the relationship. But as the relationship goes on, the love bombing gets less and less and less. So the main thing is be there for the person unconditionally. Never judge. Don't say, well, you know what, if I was in this situation, I would leave.
Yeah, but if she does pursue her dreams, her needs, her desires, her talents.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And that is one of the ways to stay in such a relationship.
Why, he'll stay with her.
He'll stay with her because the narcissist needs the victim, the wife. Narcissists are very needy. They're afraid of abandonment. They need the other person, and this is the sad part, more than the other person needs them. And the women don't know that. The narcissist woman is, oh, I'm going to leave. I'll divorce you.
I think you could even go one step even stronger. You use the word needy. I consider the word parasitic.
Right.
Yeah.
They are parasites.
Yeah.
You're right.
Now, I have a question for you, and I don't want people to misinterpret where the question is coming from. And for a moment, we'll put aside sex differences.
Okay.
Yeah. You can observe, let's take women who have a pattern of ending up
Right.
with narcissistic men. The classic or more traditional explanation for that for years was very Freudian based, but still that it was, okay, so this is a woman who probably had narcissistic parents, and she's constantly trying to get what she didn't get in childhood. I'm not so sure that really explains it all. And clearly, it's not something to blame someone for. Do you have any kind of alternative understanding of what is behind the individual who does have that repetitive pattern of finding herself generally with the same type? You know how they sometimes say there's certain women that they like the bad boys kind of thing? Same thing, yeah.
Basically, childhood, really, the way your parents treat a child really gives the child a foundation for life. That doesn't mean you could have had wonderful parents and just so happens you end up in a narcissistic relationship, right, for years, and then you leave or the person dies, then you'll go into another narcissistic relationship because we are creatures of habit. We repeat. That's our comfort zone. Even though it's painful, they did.
Right, but just to challenge that, there are many individuals who grow, or you see siblings who grew up in the same family with the same parents. And not only in the context of narcissism, but they say, hey, look what I grew up with. I don't want that for myself in my life.
Right.
So clearly, pattern repetition doesn't explain it all.
Right. But
Correct?
the issue is, the reality is, the more sensitive a person is, the more that they don't know how to self-soothe, the more the parents neglect or their lack of love emotionally and physically affects them. So if somebody is extremely sensitive, they will probably, unfortunately, either try to keep the peace in the family, give up their own identity so the parents will love them, so they get the imposter syndrome or they don't know who they are. If somebody is more robust, okay, I mean, everybody wants the parents to love them, and it's a lifelong struggle. But if they're more robust, like everything else, they can handle trauma better. And that's really, I think, the answer.
Well, I
don't know if that's the answer,
well,
but that's one.
It can't be the final answer,
No,
because
there is
you
no
also
final
see
answer.
individuals who will get into a narcissistic relationship, get out of it, and then go on and find someone who's appropriate and not as narcissistic.
I want to wrap it up because of the time. Okay. I must say it has a lot to do with one of the things that the Lubavitch Rebbe has spoken many, many times, and that is there's really three parts to our education, and that is our home, our school, and our friends, our group of friends. And each one of those have a different type of influence. Very, very educational. I guess the one takeaway is that as parents, we got to do more to love our children and to give them that support and acceptance, love that really is what we call unconditional love in its purest of sense. My dear friends, you've been listening to The Rabbi and the Therapist. We thank you. If you have any comments, you can scroll down and please share with us your thoughts, share with us your ideas, and don't forget to tune in again. Let your friends know about another episode of The Rabbi and the Therapist.